Your Denver Broncos just get three pieces of fantastic news when it comes to the injury front before the Broncos cut down to the final 53-man roster just a week away. Wild. We get a great update about our opponent in week number 2 and a quarterback that just makes a hot start almost inevitable, and also some questions about RJ Harvey and what we have not seen from him that I hope we see in the preseason game against New Orleans Saints. If you're new to the channel, I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan named Ben. Helps me in the YouTube algorithm out a ton. If you like the Broncos, if you would smash that like and subscribe button. So we are coming off back-to-back weeks where we have just completely dominated NFC opponents, beaten down the San Francisco 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals, holding them both to just a touchdown. And there's a lot of folks who are saying like, hey, pump the brakes. I know Shawn Payton said you're going to the Super Bowl, but your opponents just haven't been that good. And I just cannot help but listen to national media and hear how much both the San Francisco 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals are like talked about as definitive playoff teams. I was checking out the Pat McAfee show today, and you had Dan Orlovsky, a former NFL player who actually is very plugged into all these teams, who went out and said
in that conversation, Arizona is going to be really difficult to play against.
Arizona is going to be really difficult to play against. Well, guess they weren't difficult whatsoever for us in either joint training camp practice where we destroyed them, and then also in the preseason game where we let them score one touchdown. So we can get hyped up by preseason because the Broncos have not only just shown it in the preseason games, which you could maybe write off, but they've also done it in joint training camp practices, and that is phenomenal. So one of the big questions, I actually ran into a Broncos fan today at a work event, and he was like, man, if we stay healthy, we're going to be phenomenal. And Shawn Payton has assured us that there are several of these players who have gotten dinged up in training camp, and he's told us, hey, here's their return date. And there's a lot of skeptics online saying, oh, I don't trust Shawn. I bet we won't see Bonito again, or I bet we won't see Dre Greenlaw again. And I'm loving the fact that every time Shawn Payton says something, it is coming true. So we see today Garrett Bowles practice for the very first time since the last time we heard from him. He was in the back of an ambulance after having an asthma attack. So that is phenomenal news that he is back and at it. Maybe even better than Garrett Bowles being back is the fact that the man, the myth, the legend himself, Nik Bonitto, a guy who you need to pay, just immediately was back at practice and looked fantastic. And not only like was he back at practice, Shawn Payton specifically chose him to be the player to have the podium interview afterwards, which is just a very wild thing to do for a guy who's in the midst of contract negotiations. Like there is no way Jerry Jones puts Micah Parsons up on the podium because that relationship is so frayed and frizzled that he would throw Jerry Jones under the bus and he would never have that. It was all the beat reporters throwing microphones in his face on the sideline where Micah Parsons put the Dallas Cowboys on blast. So I love that Nik Bonitto is back at practice and then is trusted enough to be healthy to be on the podium, because you also don't put an injured dude up there. He talked about his injury and said he feels zero setbacks and has ultimate trust in the Broncos organization to get a deal signed with him. So that is phenomenal. And then the last piece of just amazing news here was that we also saw Dre Greenlaw back, and not just back, but actually practicing and doing team practice. So he wasn't just doing individual drills, he was back. So you get three big dudes back from injury who practiced and didn't just like do a little walkthrough or something like that. Shawn Payton did a full 2.5 hours of padded practice. He is an old school dude. And it kind of flies in the face of convention, right? Like practicing guys and actually having them hit each other is the way to keep them healthy in the season. But that has proven extremely true these past 2 seasons, as the Broncos have been some of the healthiest teams in football. And it's because they don't go from 0 to 60 in an instant when that season kicks off. It's because Shawn Payton, in the middle of a hot summer in Colorado, is doing 2.5 hour padded practices, doing 2.5 hour joint practices with the Cardinals where you have 1v1 on both fields there. And this is just a really, really great thing that in a 2.5 hour practice, we had no new injuries today. Absolutely loving that. And again, all of these guys back. Really, really good news. Now, the other thing that I thought was a phenomenal point is one of the biggest debates going on the interwebs in Broncos country is who's our wide out 2? Who's our wide receiver 2? And, my son's like, no, Marvin Mims is wide receiver 1 because he's his favorite player. But outside of Courtland Sutton, like, who is going to be the wide receiver 2? And I love Shawn Payton's response to that very question when basically he says, wide receiver 2 is just something y'all say. I am so focused on who is the wide receiver who is best going to hit the weakness of my opponent. And that might be Marvin Mims one week, and it might be Troy Franklin one week, and it might be Pat Bryant next week. He absolutely has a different game plan. And we saw it last season. How we played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was drastically different than how we played the New Orleans Saints. We saw read option and Bo keeping the ball and moving the ball with his feet and design quarterback runs against the Saints. And then we saw him in shotgun all the time at other times. Shawn Payton is an absolute, he's brilliant with the X's and O's. And so he comes out and says that. He's like, I don't have a true 2 or a true 3. I basically am going to scheme guys up, and I'm going to have very different looks. You guys decide between who 3 and 4 is. To us, it doesn't matter. All of those guys who get a jersey on game day are going to make actual moves. And why not go that way? That is the absolute definition of a asset-based coach, that he goes on what assets does somebody bring, and how can I use those assets to exploit whatever defense I'm playing. And at times you're going to see Marvin Mims like 100-yard reception games and 2 touchdown games, and then other times where he's maybe not even targeted. You remember that New Orleans Saints game? Cortland Sutton wasn't even targeted in that game, and we mollywopped the Saints on a Thursday night game on the road. And that is who Shawn Payton is, that whoever is the best wide receiver to exploit the coverage he is getting, he is going to absolutely do that. He's going to spam that exploit button, and we are all here for it. Also hearing that we're going to see the exact same thing when it comes to running the ball, that we're going to have a bunch of different running schemes that isn't going to be like Shawn Payton's playbook, that he mixes and matches. It's rock, paper, scissors. He knows what the other dude is throwing, the other coach is throwing, and he has the perfect answer to whatever the other coach is throwing. And that's the type of coach and type of team that you like to play, because it's not everything you see on offense is going to be drastically different the next week. That's another reason to me why, like, you throw out how you feel about how the Broncos starters looked against the San Francisco 49ers, because Shawn Payton didn't game plan from that, and he didn't even call the game. It was Joe Lombardi, and it was a base vanilla defense, where if Shawn Payton truly rolled up his sleeves and said, oh, we're going to play Saleh this week, and I know he is coming at me with this, and so here's my answer to that. And so read into how they looked at joint practices when Shawn Payton actually schemed up for it, and how they looked, last season, knowing that Bo Nix threw the 6th most touchdowns in all of football, even as a rookie, without a tight end. And so very, very exciting. Also heard some phenomenal news about how Nik Bonitto feels about Q Robinson. And we already know, like Jonah Ellis, we broke him down yesterday, how 3 dudes tried to block him yesterday, and he still hit the running back in the backfield for a loss. And on top of that, we are now hearing that Q Robinson is looking phenomenal according to his teammates. And that's really, they're the ones who are going to see it first. And he basically said, hey, he's unstoppable when he gets going. So you're talking about a platoon of outside edge rushers, guys. When you have Jonah Ellis and Dondre Tillman as your backups to Jonathan Cooper and Nik Bonitto, you throw Q Robinson in there, we're going to break the league record for sacks again. We're going to have 63 again because of our crazy outside edge rush. Adam Troutman came out today, just talked about how improved this offense is in year 1 and 2, between year 1 and 2 of Bo Nix, and that truly Bo Nix has a crazy command of this offense, and that it's going to be a sight to behold for sure. And then today, 2.5-hour practice, and the big takeaways from several of the different beat reporters who I follow was that the ball didn't hit the ground when you're moving between the 20. That is exactly what we want to see. We know that this defense is wild, you guys, that it allowed 2 touchdowns in 2 games. And after that, like, teams looked discombobulated. They looked horrible. And so Bo Nix is slowly starting to figure that out, but it is like he has been playing with ankle weights on, going up against the top defense in football. Just wait till he gets to play the Tennessee Titans, and I think we're going to see an absolute explosion of points there, and I think we're going to hold the Titans to a touchdown in that game, which will be really, really excited. Other couple of big things here that, we got basically padded practice this whole week. Shawn Payton, again, breaking the norm there. He's not taking it off and doing shopping cart jousting like we see with the Vegas Raiders, that he is practicing hard and he doesn't want to see any complaining, and he won't, because he's built a very, very strong culture here. Last piece of news here is that we are getting a great update about the Denver Broncos week 2 opponent. We already know week 1, we are getting to play a rookie in Cam Ward, and he might have a really high ceiling and have a great career, but we know that the record of a rookie quarterback in their first game, especially first game on the road in a rockin' Mile High who has Super Bowl aspirations, it is going to be insanely loud, and he's playing against the best defense in football. So that is great. And now week 2, we know that we're going to the Colts, a game I'm going to be at, so I'll tell you where my seats are. If you're there, you come say hi. But week 2 against the Colts, we didn't know, are we going up against Anthony Richardson, who is a real like hit or miss type dude, and he's got a insanely high ceiling, but also an insanely low floor. He can do some of the best plays and some of the worst plays you'll see in a football game. And the Indianapolis Colts have moved on from him and are actually starting Daniel Jones. And we just know who he is. Like that, he is not a quarterback who scares you. He's not flashy. And this just makes me feel even more confident that the Broncos are going to start wildly hot, knowing that we get to play a rookie in his first ever game. And then we get to play Daniel Dimes with a brand new system that he's moving to and a brand new team there. So I think that's great. And I also just think, how great does it feel to finally be off of that quarterback carousel, that we could do this exact same thing here, where they have tried time and time after Peyton Manning to be like, oh, our new quarterback is this, and they hype themselves up, and they still are on that quarterback carousel, and it feels incredible to finally be off of it, knowing that Bo Nix is the future of this franchise, and he has taken us deep into the playoffs, and that is something we can all believe in.